Good evening. Before this evening's Town of Delafield Plan Commission meeting, we're going to have a public hearing in front of the Town of Delafield Plan Commission and Town Board to consider a request by Cassandra Castro and Thomas Beaudry, DBA Cassandra Motorsports LLC, N47W28229 Lindale Road, for a legal nonconforming conditional use permit to allow for sales, service, outside display of exotic cars and classic pre-owned motor vehicles and watercraft, and a body shop on land located at N47W28229 Lindale Road. The property owner is KKNN Lindale LLC. The property is also known as tax key number DELT 0721999. Before we take comments from the public, I'm going to ask our town planner to provide some additional background on this proposal. After that, we will take comments from the applicant, and then following that, we will take comments from the public. If you wish to speak, there should be some cards in the back of the room that you should fill out and hand to Dan when you want to speak. So with that, Tim.
All right, thank you very much. So what I have up on the screen here is the location map. You've got Highway JK Lindale Road to the north of the site, Highway 16 to the south, Highway KE is to the west, and some other lands, vacant lands in the city of Pewaukee to the east. And, oops, let's get the right thing up here. What I'm going to do is just give you a little background of what the law is in regards to conditional use. It changed in 2017. It basically requires the decision to be made by the Plan Commission to be based on substantial evidence, and that means that any condition that we impose has to be related to the ordinance or to conditions that are in the code right now, and additional conditions can be added if they're reasonable and to the extent practicable and measurable. The decision has to be made based on substantial evidence, as well as any comments from the public have to be based on substantial evidence. For the most part, we cannot basically approve this based on how we feel or personal preference or anything like that. It's got to be based on substantial evidence. And during the deliberation portion of the meeting, so we'll have a public hearing, and then it is on the agenda for deliberation, and at that time there is a form that we're using to go through the decision-making process to determine what the conditions that I've set forth, and then if there's evidence to show that they meet that condition. But what I'm going to do now is basically go through the conditional use so everybody has an opportunity to hear what they are, and the Plan Commission as well as the Town Board has an opportunity to add to those conditions at any time. My only suggestion is that if there are outstanding comments that are made that we don't have answers for, the Plan Commission can continue this public hearing to the next meeting or to a future date. We'd have a date certain if we wanted to continue the public hearing. If there's if something significant changes after we close the public hearing, that would mean we may have to re-notify that hearing. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. It just depends on how our discussion and our deliberation or the public hearing goes. So the first part of this conditional use is basically it's called a preamble. It has a bunch of factual statements I call them whereas statements. And basically, they set forth the facts of the situation. They have made a request, as our chairman has indicated, a request for a dealership for auto sales, service, and outside display of exotic and classic vehicles, watercraft, and a body shop. The current zoning on the property is M1. That's our industrial district. There is a conditional use on the property currently. It's under the other uses conditional use, and it's granted for a number of uses that include some of the same ones that have been requested. including a few other ones that are listed here. We understand that the owner of the property is proposing to sell the entire parcel to the applicants. Condition P of the current conditional use states that if there is a change in the developer, then basically we have to start over with a new conditional use on that. The current developer is KKNN Lindale LLC. Let's see. The M1 district currently in the district states that they're for any outside source, so that M1 is our industrial district, so for any industrial district, what we say is if there's outside storage, you have to have a planting screen or a fence that screens any of the outside storage. Obviously, with vehicles in a car dealership, that's not necessarily what the operator would like to do, and we've recognized that since Cotavet Chevrolet was here back in the late 70s. And so we provided a conditional use that would allow them to operate, but not require them to have that outside barrier or screening fence. We are having and the other thing that's of importance here is that the current one is under a conditional use called other uses, which is a general category that we had in our code. And in 2019, or actually it was approved in 2020, I believe, that was removed from our conditional use section, and it was at the urging of our attorney, and so they are requesting this conditional use under a legal non-conforming use. It would be legal non-conforming in the sense that it doesn't have any screening out there. We're having the public hearing. It's September 7th. That's today. And now we get to a point where, and this is set up as if it was going to be approved, and so some of the language that you see is there. It looks like we're going to approve it. This is a document that at least they can see what the conditions are, or you can see what the conditions are, and then if everything proceeds forward, it is a document that could be edited or adopted. So condition A basically addresses exactly what they can do on the property. If it's not stated here, then we either cannot allow it, or they can come in and ask for interpretation from the Plan Commission. Letter B is going to be a definition of automobiles, or actually vehicles and watercraft. And I did receive an email. It came in Friday. I gave the Plan Commission a copy of that. Basically, number one says the definition of vehicle would be, and this is from the applicant, vehicle on site would include passenger cars, light passenger vans, and pickup trucks. Watercraft would be defined as recreational watercraft, including pontoon boats, ski boats, and personal watercraft such as jet skis. So that would be clarified and inserted into this document so we know what's going to be there. In my mind, what that means is no school buses, no box trucks, no tanks, no, things that were, semi trucks, no RVs, things of that nature, unless they're listed there. Condition C, we're asking the applicant for an updated site plan and landscaping plan. They have submitted those since we were able to submit the permit. There may be some more detail on both of those that we can talk about. Letter D talks about lighting. I requested an analysis by a lighting professional about the existing lighting that's on site. We did get information about that, and we will talk about that during our time that we can discuss the entire conditional use plans on that. But they did provide that information to us. There is a fence out there that basically has a number of vehicles behind it. We want them to maintain that fence, and that's basically for vehicles that are being stored there for either body work or after service, so they're not out being displayed for sale. They're basically behind that, and that would, so there's, that kind of operation would stay kind of behind the fence, is what we're trying to do on that, in that condition. We're asking the owner, the new owner, to remove all excess debris that's not related to the site. We give them till June 1st for that. We want the enclosure doors put on the dumpster. The dumpster shall be neat and orderly. If you've been by there recently, it's kind of a mess. Vehicle parts has to be stored inside the building. We'd like the work related to the dumpster to be completed by December 1st, assuming this moves forward. Hours of operation, a little bit different than what is currently in place right now. This is for sales, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Sunday is closed. Hours of operation for the service is 7 to 4, Monday through Friday, and they're proposed to be closed on Saturday and Sunday. Any change in those hours would have to come back to the Plan Commission for consideration and recommendation to the board. The green space to the east, we're stating that it can't be used for any operation of any off-road or motorized vehicles. I only bring that up is because we've had situations in the past with some concerns of motorcycles and other vehicles used out in that open space. Outside display of vehicles for sale are limited to the areas to the west of the building and to the south of the showroom and south of the board-on-board fence that's out there right now. Identified the, let's see, don't want to get ahead of myself. They did provide a plan of operation on which this is being, a lot of these conditions are being based, and so they have to follow their plan of operation dated August 5th, 2021. Once again, if they want to change that operation, they can come in to the Plan Commission at a later time. We can determine if it requires a public hearing or not. If it's not significant, we could allow that through a recommendation to the board. Condition L just identifies the number of the chemicals that would be involved in the service. This is a carryover from the last meeting, the current conditional use as far as the items that are listed there. Condition M talks about if it's not specifically listed, then it's prohibited, but they can come to the Plan Commission. Conditions N through the end of them are basically conditions that we have they're called standard conditions that are in every conditional use. Basically, we say in N that it's got to be conducted in a lawful, orderly, peaceful way. Condition O, it's confined to the property. It was defined up above in a legal description. If they stop the business for 12 months, then that conditional use can be taken away. It would have to go through due process, but it's an opportunity that if it does get abandoned, we can remove the conditional use. Condition Q, any change, alteration, modification, amendment, that has to come to the Plan Commission, as I've been mentioning before. Both the petitioner and the owner, in this case, it's going to be, the petitioner is going to be the owner, and that's we'll probably adjust that language to owner at the time of the signature or before the time of the signature, but basically, they will have to sign the document, and then that document, they will know what the terms and conditions of that document is, and so everybody has to sign off as well as the town does before it gets recorded. Petitioner is required to pay any fees for services that the town, professional fees that the town has used, both mine and the attorneys, if the attorney gets involved in any way. Any unpaid bills, they have to pay those. They have to keep us informed of their current address. If we create conditions in the minutes of the meeting, both either the Plan Commission or the town board, then those are incorporated into the conditional use by the mere fact that they're in the minutes. And everything else is pretty much standard. And as I said, everything gets recorded here and then recorded at the County Register of Deeds. And it's a document that would come up in a title report or something that if there's another land sale on that. All right?
Would the applicant like to come up and make some introductory comments and make your case?
Well, thanks, everybody, for your time.
Can you please say your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thomas J. Beaudry. We're proposing Cassandra Motorsports. What our intentions are is to sell all high-end cars, motorcrafts. We're intending on making about a $10 million investment between our merchandise, the building, and the renovations. We're currently in negotiation with the current owner about buying everything on the site so we can control cleaning it up. So, I mean, I guess I'm open for any questions you might have.
We'll probably save the questions for the deliberation part of the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now the public hearing is open for members of the public who would like to provide comments. Anyone really? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll now call the Planning Commission meeting to order. If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2, approval of the minutes of July 6th, 2021. Any comments?
Can you make one change on page 2 under the second order of business? You can just, it's still a commissioner.
You got promoted, Nicole.
Again.
At some point, we'll know your job title.
What page was that?
Page 2.
Well, it'd be page 2 of.
It's the first page of the minutes.
Yeah, first page of the minutes.
With those corrections, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Communications for discussion and possible action, I assume still none? Okay, unfinished business, none. There we go. Item 5A, Kettleview Veterinary Clinic, Fred Gromelek, owner, rate consideration and possible action on a request for approval of a wall sign to be located on the west side of the building at W314N720 State Highway 83. Tim, you want to give us the background?
Yeah, this is pretty simple. We approved the veterinary clinic a while back here. The request is for a 4-foot by 10-foot sign. It's going to be a cabinet on the outside of the building. Same location that the previous sign was at. They've removed that sign. The sign will be internally lit white LED. The zoning on this property is R1. It's a commercial property. It's been a commercial property as long as I can remember on that. I looked at it as a commercial property on this as far as, you know, the size of the sign. So wall signs in commercial property can be determined by the Plan Commission on that. So it's not based on the front footage. It's based on what the Plan Commission would consider reasonable. A 4x10 sign at that location to me is reasonable. I don't remember what the other sign the sign of the other sign was, but I don't think it's much bigger than what the previous one was. This one's a little different in that, as I said, it's internally lit, and so it's going to be a little bit brighter at night. I kind of put it out there that we may want to consider maybe reducing the light at nighttime, or maybe the sign goes off at a certain time potentially. I didn't get a chance to talk to the owner about that. But other than that, the town of Delafield is shown on there prominently, which is what we ask for as part of the code. And I
Does
think
the,
that's the only issue that's out there.
for most of our lighting plans, we always have the 0-foot candles at the property line. Would that requirement apply here?
It's not gonna, it's not gonna be,
That bright?
it's not gonna be that bright
Okay.
to get it out there, no. But it will be, I mean, in the midst of everything that's there, other than the street lights on 83, there's no other, and it's residential, so there's no other bright signs. I think the church that's just down to the south a little bit has a sign that has small spotlights on the sign, but those are very low wattage spotlights. They're not, this is gonna be, it's gonna be a little bit whiter, I would say.
But this faces the highway and not the residential neighborhood?
Correct, absolutely, yes, yes. So it's just something to consider.
Thoughts or discussion? Is the applicant here? Yes. Are you comfortable turning the light down or off at a certain hour in the evening?
Yeah. Would 8 or 9 PM be okay?
I think a turn-off from my perspective at 9 o'clock seems like a reasonable compromise.
No issue with the size, I assume?
No, I mean, it looks like it's basically the same size as the sign that was previously there. It's facing Highway 83. I think, if the applicant's willing to turn it off at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I think that's a win-win because it maintains the rural characteristic of the town of Delafield, even though it is on Highway 83. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it meets the requirements as the code has proposed. I move that we recommend the sign as proposed with the condition that the light be turned off at 9 PM.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 5B, John Spheris, developer, the retreat subdivision reconsideration and possible action, I guess, on the approval of the developer's agreement. Tim?
Very simple. Mr. Spheris is doing the retreat. He's under construction out there. He did put up a letter of credit before we started, and that was a decision by staff to allow him to start with, knowing that we have the letter of credit, which was kind of the important part of it. And he had submitted the developer's agreement prior to them starting. So it was just a matter of process here of getting the developer agreement through the plan commission and then to the board. We have a standard developer's agreement that was prepared by our attorney. We edited slightly just for the sake of that development. I mean, the names change. They don't have sewer out there. They don't have any lighting. Things like that are basically not in that document, but it's a pretty standard document. And staff has reviewed it, consider it acceptable, and recommend approval by the plan commission, or recommend that you approve it and give a positive recommendation to the board.
Any comments, questions, changes?
Staff's reviewed it, Eric's reviewed it, it's all good from their perspective.
Yes.
Eric reviewed it, made some changes which we incorporated into the draft, so.
So if there's like some paragraphs that don't have any language, like on page 11, under sanitary sewer, there's a hanging one.
That's been
Because they
removed.
don't have sanitary, so.
Yeah.
No, I know, but usually you would just have a B, and you wouldn't have a 1 with nothing behind it.
Right.
And so
I
that
think
should
that's
be,
been edited out.
okay. And then,
Since then.
Or is that-
also, I think they have to run a spell check, because on page 13F, municipalities program. They should probably just run a spell check. If it's gonna be filed anywhere.
John wants to speak. I don't know if he's allowed to speak.
John, you have a?
Yep.
Yeah, please come up.
John Spears, I'm the developer. what you have may be the preliminary draft, because we have a final draft that is only, I think, 9 pages long, and it's already been signed by the owner.
It could be, well, mine isn't, I'm looking off at the numbers that we have in the corner, the date stamps.
Yeah,
And
I
so-
think that's a preliminary draft,
It's under section 1, sub B,
yeah.
and then there's a sub 1 that doesn't have anything, and just with the tenets of drafting, typically you wouldn't have a blank paragraph.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm 90, that whole, this is the.
And that's down to 9 on the
I
revised
think,
one.
no, this is, I think,
No,
a different
we-
document.
That's an earlier one, see.
We have the final, we'll make the change and put this on.
Okay.
Because
Because
John,
it
the one that
looks-
was signed, I think has changed somewhat, yeah.
So I'm looking at, yeah, we have one that's just titled Model Developers Agreement for the Retreat.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's a slight,
This
it's a
is
different document.
And we drafted this in track changes, so often when you accept all track changes, sometimes it leaves go.
We trust you guys, to an
Okay,
extent.
we'll clean it up.
Thanks.
With cleanup comments,
I see we've got on section E, the deed restrictions. And we have it in here, no owner of any lot shall or will at any time alter the grade of any lot from that which is naturally occurring on the lot. So when we say naturally occurring in here, is that,
Can you point, where was that again, please?
it would be page 21 of the paper, the
Why don't
full
you give me
agenda,
that letter?
section E.
Section E,
Yep,
Deed restriction.
section E?
It's right here.
yeah, E deed restrictions on page 21 of the Bates stamp.
What happened to that? Why is?
Section 15,
Oh, it's way back. Wait, here we go, okay. Sorry, I was looking at the other E. Yeah, okay. Okay, now your question. Too many
So-
E's out there.
yeah, that's fair. But it says naturally occurring, so no owner of any lot shall or will at any time alter the grade of any lot from that which is naturally occurring on that lot. So I know that previously, when we had come to talk about the retreat, there was the wall or the barrier, the berm that came up, right? We found out it was an old fieldstone wall. Is this to protect that neighborhood below it? When we say naturally occurring from that water runoff?
Well, let me address, this language has not changed in any of our developers agreements, so I didn't change anything for the retreat. That particular area where the water goes from this property to the west was the contractor, we talked to the contractor separately, and they were gonna take care of berming that, so the water doesn't go to the west, it'll flow to the north. So
And that would be in an out,
This-
that would be in an outlot, probably, not in the residential lot.
no, because all the lots,
Oh, there
there's
is no
no
outlots.
outlots
There are no
except for
outlots.
stormwater.
Yeah.
But that's a pre-graded, I think they've already graded that.
It was requested that we try to divert the water away from the neighbors.
Right, to the north, yeah, to the water pond.
I thought we were actually gonna be making that part of a restriction on those properties so that they wouldn't be able to just let the water keep flowing. There was at the last meeting, and that was back in November, so that's a while ago. But I thought the idea was that with the shaping of the land, right, we were gonna keep as much water on that side
On that-
instead of having it drain down,
Correct.
knowing that whole neighborhood below it is in a bowl. So how does this deed restrictions work with those ideas of actually putting it out there on a title or a restriction for those homeowners to change that landscape or the topography there?
Wasn't that topography part of the grading plan that we approved?
It was, but it wasn't, this particular area was not specifically shown on the grading plan. It was shown as natural, but I was aware of it, Dan was aware of it. of this issue. John was aware of it. We're all aware of that we
Yeah.
wanted to stop this water
So
from
how do
coming.
those previous discussions and the awareness that we have work within these deed restrictions that are here? Or don't they?
Right now, I mean, the deed restrictions will come in with the final plat, which is pending right now. Final plat will come in next month, and they'll have deed restrictions that'll be recorded along with the final plat.
Will the final plat also have final grading?
Pardon?
Will the final plat also have grading?
No. Final plat is just to
Just
create
as-
the lots, but
okay.
then, but it'll have, I think the question really is, this language, this is a request to add a deed restriction in, I'm sorry, add this language in the deed restriction. And I
But
think-
what binding document, if it's not this agreement, what binding document is the developer subject to make sure the water goes north and not west? Was it the
This-
grading plan we approved
Well,
previously?
well,
This-
isn't it basically that once the grading and the grade, I mean, I think really what Commissioner Dickerson is alluding to is under item E here on page 12, the grading, erosion, and silt control, where, I mean, when we approved it, we mentioned the issue of the water. We didn't want the water to run that way. You mentioned you're aware of it, Dan's aware of it. I think that, the developer's obviously aware of it, that they're gonna fix the grading. And I think what you're alluding to is, as far as the deed restriction is, once that grade is done, the people who buy those lots can't change
Change
the
it.
grades, just like they can't change the ditches and stuff in a typical residential subdivision. Is that?
I think that's what you're getting at as well, is we don't want the people to go in the back there and change it back to something
And
else.
the concern here, at least for, to add on to that, is the word naturally.
Excuse me, do you want us to like maybe deed restrict so nobody does destroy that berm, is that what you're alluding to?
Okay.
Yeah, if their argument is it wasn't a natural, so therefore I can move it. And that's her,
We put it there purposely to divert the water, but we can deed restrict something on that lot so it won't be destroyed.
And my recollection from the November meeting was that was the way that we were going with this particular development, was to add in a deed restriction to say that once that berm was there to protect the lower lying neighbors.
We put the ditch in there, the berm in there, but we can deed restrict it. I know what you're saying.
so if we simply added to the deed restriction of some sentence that says that, no owner can change the drainage set forth in paragraph D, which is, I think, the language we agreed to that mandated the developer move the water to the north. That in addition to that, they can't change natural occurring things, they can't change the drainage required by the developer's agreement, or,
I
we'll let
think
the lawyer.
that would be fair, yeah.
I think that's what we're trying to do. We're saying, if it's graded properly, the owners can't change it.
If you read the whole sentence, it just says, which naturally occurring on that lot at the time the site development improvements have been completed by the developer, unless and until the lot owner shall first obtain written approval from the municipality engineer for such grade alteration.
So you're saying,
I
Tim.
don't disagree that we should clear up the language, but the intent is, when he's done grading and it's accepted, other than building the house, we don't want someone regrading their whole backyard, without some kind of a plan, and that's what we usually ask for.
We can specifically deed restrict that lot, if that's what your concern is.
It is, yes, and I think if we can clean up that language to make that crystal clear, that would be beneficial for the existing neighborhood.
I mean, could the word naturally also just be stricken?
That's what I was thinking, right?
I mean, just because you could say which is occurring on that lot at the time of the sale of the development. I mean, that, in addition, I'm just stating in addition, because the word natural is ambiguous.
I would agree, and I think that creates a little bit of a conflict there, given some of the earlier conversations around this particular.
Yeah, the berm's not natural, so,
Yeah,
so, yeah. So
Okay,
strike
fair
natural and then come up with some stronger language that they can't.
Just say which is completed
Yeah.
on that lot,
We'll work with
I think,
Tim.
yeah, we have, yeah.
right?
And I think with regards to that water too, and maybe this isn't the appropriate place or time for it, but there was originally a retention pond on outlot number 3. And that looks like now it's on the other side of where the road would be. So I'm assuming with even though the final grading plan may not necessarily have the topography on it, do we anticipate that changing?
I can respond to that too. There's only one wet pond, which is just off of City Beach. That's the only wet pond. The other pond is just a retention area that, and this was all done per the county's stormwater requirements.
So an outlet number 3, will that, what was shown back in November, that's not a pond, that's just a,
The one to the north is just a retention area. They did not want that to be a wet pond.
okay. But it will be a retention area?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll remain an outlet. That's per the Washoe County stormwater.
So it's likely, I don't remember specifically, but that's probably they call it a biofiltration basin. So it's a dry basin that when water gets in, it'll filtrate through instead of hold water in it, which is an acceptable way to have it's not really a pond, it's gonna be just a low area that's gonna collect the water, let it filtrate through.
Prevents runoff, though.
Yes.
That's the primary.
Well, that's where the runoff will go, yeah. I mean, you're.
Prevents
get-
runoff
getting-
to
getting rid of-
adjacent properties.
Gets rid of the pollutants through the infiltration process as opposed to letting it settle out under the water in the ponds.
So on E then, we're striking naturally and working out additional language.
I was thinking we use the word completed instead of naturally.
Well, it's completed is in the next line.
Oh, yeah, okay. So yeah, just strike it.
Yeah, I think strike naturally, and if we can add a sentence to clarify that they can't touch the berm and the grade.
We'll work with Tim on that.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? With those changes?
Make a motion to, plan commission to approve it and make a recommendation to the town board to approve the developer's agreement for the retreat with the striking of the word natural under the deed restrictions and working out the language to clarify that the berm can't be altered.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks. Item 5C, Cassandra Castro and Thomas Beaudry, Cassandra's Motorsports LLC, applicant KKN Lindell LLC, owner, reconsideration and possible action on a request for a legal non-conforming conditional use permit to allow for sales, service, outside display of exotic and classic pre-owned motor vehicles and watercraft and a body shop and a monument sign on land located at N47W28229 Lindale Road. This was the matter of the public hearing earlier. We heard Tim's summary of the, what I'll call the draft conditional use permit, kind of the baseline set of terms and conditions. But now I want to open it up for discussion at the planning commission to see what their thoughts are and what else we might think.
Didn't know any further history on the property until we all talked about it at times, right? And if there's a way to maybe get it cleaned up, I guess that's my first blush at it, would be that it'd be a nice thing to have done.
Yeah.
I think that's another good place.
Sure.
Yes or no?
Yep.
Yeah. My intentions are to repaint the building. I own a tree farm, so along the edges of the property, I'm gonna plant a lot of spruces and silver birches, and make them more natural. By the signage, I'm gonna do some more planting in front of the building, I'm gonna do some lower bushes and stuff. So we're gonna clean the whole site up and do, that's why I'm trying to purchase everything, so I can control what I say I'm gonna do. If that makes any sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and
I mean, we're selling cars up to $500,000, so our presence needs to be professional. One saving grace is the parking lot is just, I can get it resealed and striped, and it'll look like a brand new parking lot. I have brand new lighting coming in, I'm gonna use existing poles, but I'm going to a lighting that, the existing lighting burns 13,000 watts. This lighting will be a cleaner, more subdued light, and it'll only burn 1,000 watts. And we have a dimmer system going on it that we can set on a timer, what time we want it to reduce the light by 50%, 60%. Then it'll be on motion, so if anybody breaks into the lot or drives through the lot, the light will go on. But otherwise during the night, so we can set them where they go off almost completely. As the night goes on, you can program them. So, we're trying to take every precaution to be friendly to the community and, make the place look respectable, we can't ask people to come and spend that kind of money. Only for something that's substandard, So that's our.
I'm going to pass on a few comments that I received from our town chairman. He, for his personal reasons, wasn't particularly interested in having water vehicles there as well as cars. He thought if it's a car dealership, it's a car dealership. If it's a boat dealership, it's a boat dealership. Do you really need to do both?
Well, we're not gonna really be a boat dealership, I'm not gonna carry per se any line, but like, I can give you an example. There's a 22 model, 23, I think it's an XT Mastercraft, I was able to buy the boat at this, it's probably selling 50,000 over list. We can even keep them inside if we have to, there'll be a $200,000 Mastercraft boat there next to an exotic car, it's not gonna look tacky or dirty, or it's not gonna be old fishing boats scattered through the parking lot and pontoon boats everywhere. The other boat we have is, for instance, is a Artolata that they started making in 2019. It's an expandable pontoon boat. It goes from 8.5 feet to 15 foot wide. So we're only gonna carry the rare boats, maybe 3 or 4 on our lot, you know what I mean? So there's not gonna be a big abundance, and if it's that much against, Lake Country selling boats, we won't sell them. I mean, it's a natural, and we're only gonna carry high-end boats. Trust me, you'll be proud of the place, you won't have any.
One of the next comment, and I think this is true now, but no gas tanks underground or above ground,
Not
okay?
that I'm aware of.
And
Not
we're gonna-
any environmental or anything, I really would've came up on phase 1.
Yeah, and we're looking to add that as a condition because we don't want to have gas tanks.
I don't wanna do it.
Okay. You talked in your plan only about selling and servicing, so would you be doing any leasing of the vehicles?
We're not sure.
Because you wouldn't be allowed,
Down the road, we may have a thing where we'll rent exotic cars, where you can rent them for a weekend or a day. But I don't know how that would change the operation of our business or cause any.
well, it will be prohibited unless you come back. So as long as you understand that if in 2 years you want to do daily or weekly rentals, the conditional use permit would not allow that.
Really?
And if you wanted it on your front end, I mean, we had this issue with the existing conditional use. We said you could sell and lease, and so then they opened up a U-Haul store, and now it's leasing. So we want,
When I say leasing, I mean like, we're hooked in with leasing companies.
yeah.
So if someone wants to buy a car from us and lease it, we'll hook them onto a leasing company, yes, we're gonna do that.
And we can approve leases of 12 months or longer. What we're trying to avoid is the incident we had in the past where it became a U-Haul dealership.
No, we're not gonna, when I say lease, we're gonna, like, if we sell someone a car,
Yeah.
we're gonna hook them up with, say, Dick
Sure,
Tracy
understood,
Leasing,
yeah.
that's not on our premises.
Right.
That'll finance it, the same as when we sell a car.
Yeah.
we'll
The bank will
deal with
finance
Bank of America, we're gonna sell the financing.
Yeah.
That's what a car dealership does.
Right, and all I'm saying is the language of your submission and the current draft says you're only going to sell, that you won't be leasing. So we may want to tweak
I
it
don't
to,
know how to address that, I mean,
Well-
I don't say we're gonna be financing either, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to say financing and leasing? I don't know, to be honest with you, when I bought this, or I haven't bought it yet, and that's where I'm getting, because he wants me to release these conditions. But anyways, I thought it was a car dealership from 74, that I was gonna come in and get an occupancy permit, to be quite honest with you, so I sat down with these two gentlemen, so ago, we said, well, we better get our act going, and in lieu, that's why there's not a professional landscaping plan. I mean, I sent you stuff on this plan using the existing sign, what it would look like. It's a little flat, we hired a professional, which
Yeah.
is a big marketing company to do our website, our logos, our everything, you know, so it's a top-notch operation, you know. So,
Okay.
yes, we are gonna lease cars and we are gonna finance cars.
Okay.
It's not like in-house, you know what I mean?
Right.
We're gonna handle it in-house, but the people that are doing it are off-site.
Right.
Does that make
I think we
sense?
just need to tweak the language to allow that, and I'm not concerned about that as long as we have an understanding and the language is clear that short-term leases is a different animal. And if you want to do daily or weekly leases, then it's a different
Well,
discussion.
If I did, it would be like for someone to come and, which I'll come and talk to you, but we don't even have it put together with our insurance company, but a lot of the big exotic stores, they have like, you can lease it for 4 hours, you can lease it for a day, you can lease it for a weekend. And someone coming, pulling up with their Porsche and taking a Lamborghini, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like it's not like they're coming to pick up a U-Haul truck,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Well, I think the concern is we don't want to turn into an Avis or a Hertz, you know? I mean,
Right.
No, I'm not in the rental car business.
But
Well,
you got, Tom, you gotta understand, we're writing this document and people interpret it differently a year from now, so we wanna be clear.
I'm asking, what do I put on a dealership? I'm opening up a car dealership, yes, we are gonna lease cars.
Sell and leasing vehicles in, and a long-term lease, we're fine with. It's the daily rentals.
And if I do decide to do a rental with exotic cars, not.
Then you'll come back to
Avis
us.
Or anything like that, it's gonna be limited to like 4 cars.
Okay.
you
No,
know?
but I think what he was indicating is that,
It's not
It's-
documented.
Which has to be clear.
let me just finish. And so with respect to the leases, that they have to be long-term in nature and not short-term,
What
not
does that
daily.
mean, ma'am?
Long-term is typically more than a year, more than 6
Okay.
months. I mean, that would be my definition of long-term, not 4
I
hours.
just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree, 100%. And I'm not going into the rental car business either. I don't have anything to do with that.
There's a long history with this property, as you understand, and we've learned a lot from our mistakes.
That's why I'm trying to buy everything on the location.
Okay. Well, those were all of our town chairman's comments, so any other?
Do I need to change language, excuse me?
We're going to work on,
We just got to clarify. it,
we're
I
going to
think.
clarify in the conditional use permit, which you then would sign.
Yeah, that's
But in the application or the plan of operation, if the plan of operation just says sell and service, you know, sell, lease, and service. Yeah, and we'll put in the conditional use that all leases need to be long-term.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think you can have a definitional term that lease, of what the definition of lease is in this agreement.
Yeah.
Just so it's clear what's intended.
Yeah,
Would it say in lieu of purchasing a car, someone can lease? Minimum 1-year lease or something like that? I don't know.
the permitted conditional use will be to sell, lease, and service vehicles. Lease will be defined to mean a contract of 12 months or duration. Yeah.
Basically, lease or sale, yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Tim, you, in your report, you have that you didn't have a recommendation at the time?
Not at this time, no, I want to be open to discussion here.
Well, we've got a lot of, the email I found helpful in answering some of the questions, and we should go through that. And then we got to go through the conditions checklist that Tim put together.
Can we clarify, while we're on the whole issue of what you're selling, can we clarify, it said, I think the application said pre-owned. Will there be new cars?
Well, we don't per se have a new car license, but like, we'll buy like these one-of-a-kind cars from somewhere out of state, and we'll bring it, we can't sell it as a new car, it has to be sold as a used car because we purchased it.
Okay, just so we're, just I
Could
want.
be a
I just-
used car with 1, 2, 10 miles on it.
20 miles on
Yeah.
it, but it's used,
Yeah.
because we bought it.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a-
there's not
I
gonna
don't
be
think
a
I have a-
ton of
we
them
don't have a
because the
problem
cars
with the-
we're after, they're very rare.
We don't have a problem, I don't think we have a problem with you selling new cars, you know, that might be even preferred. You know, if you're gonna have any other cars there other than Lamborghinis and what, stuff like that, maybe a few new cars. But I don't know if we wanna add that in as the opportunity to do that. You're not requesting it, so maybe.
Yeah, I would say if he's not
Okay.
requesting it, I understand what he's saying about even if it's got 10 miles on it, it's used or it's pre-owned.
Let me ask you, what if we would get a franchise? Do we have to come back to, or can we
Yeah.
include it now in sales?
No, we'd want you to come back because we'd want to know who what is the franchise with? Is it, and obviously you would too, right? You probably don't want to sell Kias with, probably shouldn't bash Kias.
Well, I think technically it's a distributorship.
Yeah,
I think that's the legal term for car dealers, is that there's a requirement of distributorships.
yeah. And we'd want to, then there'd be a whole different set of rules and regulations I'm thinking we'd want to deal with. So if that's an opportunity, you can always come back and talk to us.
Down the road, there's these smaller cars that people take their motorhomes and stuff and their lake homes. We may take a line on like that and we bring them back to you. We don't have any of those in the works right now.
Do you envision with, the exotic cars and the exotic boats having special events? Because I know that there's not a special event section in the current conditional use.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because actually me and my friend actually do a lot to give back to the community. Our first event that I've been working with is with KLH. We want to do something for Children's Hospital. It would be like on a Saturday, we'd set up a tent and have a barbecue and maybe live music or something, which I'm sure would require a permit every time. That's why I didn't in lieu put it in here,
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we're aware of it and with the language is in there because once this conditional use is signed and sealed and approved, I mean, these are your guidelines and, the residents of this town are, sticklers and, if.
I would prefer if we could put it in if anyway. Because I do plan on doing that and who knows, we might do something for a local Kiwanis club or something, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, and those come with all sorts of, Tim, what are the rules, or Dan, for special events like that? Because I know parking, traffic, all those things have to be dealt with.
Yeah, typically we ask, if we don't know what they are, then we ask them to come in for a special permit each time.
Do we need to put anything in the conditional use permit here other than special events by separate permit would be
Yep.
allowed? Okay.
If we knew what the special events were, then we would have.
Yeah, then we could
I
put
think we
but-
did that for the Pewaukee Yacht Club, they submit their
Well, and I thought we did
calendar
it,
every year.
I thought we
For
did it
Haas,
for
too,
Haas,
kind of-
we did it for
Yeah.
Haas too.
That's
And
right,
we,
yeah.
and when you get the special permit request, you'll get restrictions like you can't park on the street, things like that, so.
Unfortunately, I have a large lot.
Yeah.
But
Might be full of
after
cars.
the first year, we'll be able to pretty much plan the events because we'll do them the same time every year. We'll pick like 3 charitable events. We'll hold 3 different events or 2 different events or something like that.
Okay,
So we're big into the charity type thing.
okay.
Is there currently a body shop located at this
Yeah.
location?
Yes.
It's in the back half of the, back third of the building.
Okay.
And it's actually per code, they have downdraft spray boots, I looked them all over, frame straight and equipment. Right now, we don't have the personnel to run a body shop, so I left it in there because if we get qualified people, we definitely want to open it up and just paint the custom cars,
Well, I guess what I'm questioning in particular is the answer to question 4 on the September 3rd email. And it says, we have no intentions of operating the body shop for at least 6 to 12 months, at which point we will reevaluate the situation.
Well, maybe I said, what I meant is, for the first 6 months or so, we're gonna be focusing on getting the building cleaned up, the lot cleaned up, the landscaping done, sales, because I'm sitting on a ton of cars, and, then we're gonna try to hire a staff for the body shop, and what I meant is that we're gonna reevaluate when we have the proper personnel to open it up. I mean, we're gonna use it we're probably gonna have to use it for an indoor showroom at first, because a lot of our cars can't sit outside.
But that won't change the odors and vibration, the answers to the questions
No,
about,
There's, the air purification, filtering system, and all the spray booths are all done per code, per state, per county. The air makeups in the garage, the oil recapturing systems, if they change the oil, they come to be pumped out. I mean, they're just little tanks. I mean, everything, I was surprised, everything that's there is up to date and modern.
Yeah, it's a fairly modern turnkey body shop
Yeah.
that's there, so.
Tim,
They
are,
have a downdraft prep unit,
Yeah,
which
it's-
I used to install the downdraft kits.
does the conditional use permit have explicit requirements that no odors, no vibration come from the buildings?
Those are, yes, let's just answer it yes. I mean, we
Okay.
say that we can use that as criteria to evaluate.
Right,
you
okay.
know. We can.
When we go
there
through the
can be
checklist,
odor-
we'll-
There can be odors, but it just can't be, excessive orders or things
Right.
like that. And
Yeah, okay.
With the, I noticed that in the email, it indicates the lighting plan will follow on Tuesday. Has that been provided?
It came today. I gave it to you guys.
Well, I got it. It's like- No one else got it.
Literally, you asked for it on Friday. I had the guy come out
That's
that
okay.
night, the guy who represents the lighting company, and usually it's a week or 2 week turnaround.
Yeah, I appreciate, they've been very responsive. If I ask for something, I get it, and I asked for an updated site plan and got it. Between 4 and 6 o'clock tonight, I got it, so.
So how do we, on the lighting, I noticed the fixtures, you said you're gonna use the existing poles,
I gave the old
Yeah.
existing lighting, I had them do a evaluation of what's existing.
and then what it'll
And
look like.
I proposed the new lights that I'm gonna put on the existing poles, so I kept the same locations.
Okay.
And with the new lighting is, it's, like I said, it's 1,000 versus 13,000, and it can be controlled at nighttime. You can set it at 6 o'clock, it goes down to 75, at 8 o'clock down to 50%, you know? So it's pretty
Yeah.
slick, and it
So
won't
it's-
come back on unless someone motion, and then it'll turn itself back on.
Or the deer.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, deer.
you may have it going on 15 times. You may wanna turn on your motion
I'm sure
sensors.
they must be able to regulate that somehow, maybe.
So I did just take a brief look at it. I still have a lot of questions that we probably need to just work out. Just with time, those can be worked out.
Yeah, I think our issue is, and I noticed the existing fixtures face inward, so it, you don't,
Yes.
I don't think they'll be shining in the eyes of people on 16.
I'll direct them, but just on the lot,
Yeah.
not even on the vacant landing stuff.
Yeah,
But these, your designer said they want to tilt it 30 degrees. We don't allow that. We want it 90 degrees. Those are things that
Yeah.
I can work with this person.
Tim, it came over 5 minutes before I sent it to you
Yeah.
at 5:30.
Okay,
yeah.
so,
So I guess at this time, we can't verify that paragraph D with respect to the lighting and the 0-foot candles and the cutoff type, if that, any of that's been complied with?
Yeah, yeah.
I can verify that it's 0 at the lot lines, but that's about it.
It just has, under sub D, it has a number of
Correct.
requirements, and so
And I
that,
haven't reviewed those.
okay.
haven't had
The
time to
number
review those.
is on the plan, though, Tim.
The number,
What she's asking for, the looms? I don't,
Well, no, there's in paragraph D,
0-foot cans at the property line, cutoff lighting,
Verified that it's 0-foot cans at the property
yeah,
line.
but not greater than
Yeah.
9-foot candles at any one spot. Those are the sorts of things Tim still has to work out.
correct. No, I understand. I'm
Yeah.
just saying it seems like there's some of, with the lighting plan coming in immediately before that Tim hasn't had the chance
Right,
to.
right, but if we're comfortable with the condition that's written, then Tim can make sure that the lighting plan meets the requirements of paragraph D.
Tim, I'm not 100% sure with these lighting plans, what is LLF?
I'm not sure either. I didn't really,
That's what she was requesting, because it says 0.650. No?
I don't know
We're not
off
gonna
the
do
top
this
of my
at
head
this
what that is.
I'm not good with that.
I don't know.
It says loom watts, 1,000.
Are the hours of operation on Saturdays for sales until 3 PM or 4 PM conflicts in the two documents? Yours.
What's their plan of operation here? Remember what,
Oh, in your memo, it's 3 o'clock, and on the document, it's 4
oh,
o'clock.
I'm sorry, so it's 3 o'clock. Is it 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
3 o'clock, I'm sorry, that was my error then.
So the conditional use is 10 to 4, should be 10 to 3? Okay.
And Tim, I think, and I know it's a standard provision, but in paragraph B, it seems like they might want to do some sort of semicolon and then 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's a number of ors, some of which have commas before, some of which don't. And so it's unclear with respect to the discontinuation, what would be grounds for it.
So you're okay with the language, just the,
Correct. It's unclear when the ors are
okay,
additional conditions versus when it's a something
Oh.
within a specific condition. So sometimes by just doing a semicolon and a 1, 2, 3, 4, it makes it more clear. It's just a long, the paragraph is just a little clunky.
You came from an attorney.
We've already talked about
Not a good
spell
enough
check.
attorney.
The attorney who doesn't have a spell
I
check,
have to
apparently.
say, I literally, I mean, Eric gave us these conditions, and I plopped them in because I'm not gonna argue with the attorney, so.
Oh, you
But
should.
now I will.
Yes.
One of the other items we discussed, I discussed with Tim and Dan, is there are a number of conditions in our M1 zoning that apply to any M1 development. And to be honest, we think all of them should apply here, except for the requirement that the grounds be fenced, because that's the one thing they don't want, and that's why this is a conditional use. But the other requirements of M1 zoning, like having a landscaping plan and like maintaining the landscaping, things of those nature, we just thought it'd be useful to say,
You know,
the conditions of M1 apply except for the requirement to have the fence up. I mean, it's a zoning requirement, so.
Yeah, I agree. But we just discussed this on, geez, I forget what night it was. This was all last, I think it was maybe Friday. And I took a survey, the old survey, and I had my guy draw in pine trees and so birches on there to show how many trees I was gonna add. It was about, like,
Yeah,
it's pretty cheesy how I did it.
They've got them.
we've got it.
We've
Yeah,
got
I
it.
just tried to get the idea across that I am gonna spruce it up. but
Yeah, no, that's good.
Usually I do it, that time I do a professional landscape.
So with M1 too, does it allow for all of the others? I know it's got boats, RVs up here in the front, along with trailers, dirt bikes, motorcycles, and snowmobiles? and all
That's
that?
the old one, I believe. That's the old
That's the
conditional.
old conditional use, which is no longer gonna be
So
valid.
we're not going to allow dirt bikes and ATVs and UTVs. It's just classic cars and
Can
motor
I ask you
vehicles.
something? If I wanted to sell the ATVs, could I sell them from inside?
Not unless we specify it in the conditional use.
Not-
Yeah, I think you're right.
I would suggest if you're gonna do that, come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Just ask-
you don't wanna start all over right now
No, I
with
don't.
that kind of stuff, so that's a change.
I'm sitting on
Once
$5
again,
million worth of cars for
The,
10 months.
the
I
public,
Really want to.
the public hearing and the people that were hearing things are basing they didn't have comments, but if they were listening or watching, they're basing it on what we've stated, what you've stated here.
Okay.
If all of a sudden we have ATVs, we'll have somebody,
Well,
they'll
they're gonna
say, wait a
yeah.
minute, they didn't say that they're gonna have
Yeah, I
ATVs.
wasn't- She asked me and I wasn't clear. I really didn't read over what she, exactly what she stated that we all.
It's okay.
So relative to what's in there, the very, page 1 does, it's probably the old one, right? But it does have Cassandra Castro and Tom listed on here. And it does list ATVs, mopeds, vans, motorbikes, et cetera.
You're saying in the
In the
current,
whereas,
Yeah, whereas the use of the property by the current owner that allows the display of the following types of vehicles on site for sale without planting a screen or fence, boats,
Well,
ATVs, UTVs.
That should maybe just be former owner. Well, I
Yeah.
guess it's a question of, because if we're not going to sign the conditional use until the sale closes, then it would just be the former owner that allows for, because that's the old permit, and that's being
Yeah.
revoked.
And I'm just looking at the names on here, so if, just the front portion. if
Yeah, I
that
mean,
is-
saying the current owner has those rights when the current owner is identified as KKNN Lindale is incorrect.
yeah, because basically on page 2, therefore, the property owner shall be allowed to use the site for sales, service, and outside display of exotic and classic newer pre-owned vehicles, watercraft, and a body shop without a planting screen or fence to shield the outdoor display of vehicles, except for vehicles described in condition E below, which are to be screened from the south by an existing fence. The display of vehicles and watercraft shall be orderly.
So A is the new list of what they can sell.
Okay.
So I think, Tim, the recital should strike either,
well, I think when this is written, it's written as if the owner is still KKNNL Lindale.
KKNN is the new owner, isn't it?
But then on the
I don't
top,
know.
though, the first whereas, though, does refer, it is conflicting, you're correct.
It-
And so, But it does say up here, Cassandra Castro,
Yep.
property owner, and then down here, current owner.
No, it says Cassandra and Thomas applicants, comma, KKNN Lindale LLC property owner have petitioned. So the application was signed by both parties,
The seller and the buyer.
the seller and the buyer, yeah. We can clear all that up. If we know that the sale's gonna take place and they own the land, then we can clear up the conditional use. But prior to that document being
But to your
signed.
question, the list of vehicles in the third recital is not what's going to be permitted on a going forward basis.
Yeah, it seems a little bumpy, to me, as far as the language in there with regards to that transparency of current, what does the current owner have versus what are we allowing for
The
in
applicant.
there? And I'm familiar with the type of dealerships that they're proposing here. And, you know, even with the rentals of the higher end, vehicles. So there's a nice complement, I think, there, if that is, you know, how we're doing it, but the language of exotic, while that comes to mind of what that might be, I think with every, you know, even looking at this use of what the current owner had, right, if we start talking about exotic motorcycles, not to say that that's where you're going with that, but that's a different range of types of vehicles. So as we look at this, right, and if we're doing some tweaking to the words, do we need to put a definition on what exotic is? I think that there's a general idea that these would be higher end vehicles. And there's probably, while dollar figures will ebb and flow with the market, that idea of exotic, right? What does that actually quantify? If there has been the concerns from the neighborhoods, from the town in the past on this property, do we want to define what exotic actually means? I mean, I'm assuming it's higher end vehicles, and maybe it's just that.
Exotics are a word that they use to be expensive, but exotic is basically a sports car. So a sports car can range anywhere from 15,000 to 15 million, you know, so I don't know how to clarify that.
Is exotic a term used by car enthusiasts and dealers, or is it?
I don't know that it carries a definition. I mean, exotic, there's exotic dancers, there's exotic, I think it just means exciting, I guess, I don't know, but, there's sports cars, there's Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens, Porsches, Bugattis, I mean, you can go on and on, I don't know how you would clarify it.
Are those referred to as sports cars?
You can refer to them both ways.
Right.
So instead of exotic, can we just use sports cars?
That's what I was trying to get at. Maybe
Do we
sports
need
cars
to,
would
do we
cover
need
that.
sports cars? I mean, do we just say, I mean,
Well,
the definition would be passenger
All luxury
cars?
car sales?
Yeah, I don't mean to, just say I Googled it.
What does it mean?
So an exotic car, right, and just to give you a comparison here, right, like I'm far more familiar with, I get an idea of where you're going with this. I've seen the types of dealerships that I think you're after. But when you say exotic, especially as you start talking about motorcycles and ATVs, that's a whole different, you can watch Flat Out Friday to get an idea of what exotic counts as. But for a exotic car, it also can be called a supercar, which is a description of a street legal, high performance luxury sports car. That's what they're giving as is.
That's what has many different purposes, many different cars that could fall underneath that. That's
So-
what I'm trying to say.
Well, but
If
Because
you're,
I'm gonna sell, I don't wanna just sell, like, I would say 80 to 90% of my cars are gonna be over 100,000.
do you think
And I
everything on
still
your
want-
lot is gonna be street legal?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have anything that's not street legal.
High
but-
performance luxury?
Oh, for sure, high performance luxury.
Do you think that instead of just exotic, that those would be
High
definitions that we could?
performance luxury, say?
High performance, street legal, luxuries, yeah. If you wanna ditch sports?
I'm fine with it, and sports,
But then what about pickup?
I wanna be able to sell to the guy who only has 20 or 30,000, that it's not gonna be a sloppy looking car. It's gonna be like a '08 Lexus with 30,000 miles on it that looks brand new, you know? But I wanna be able to sell to someone that can only afford a $25,000 or a $50,000 car too. You know?
But the definition of vehicle that came in via email was light passenger vans and pickup trucks too.
Yeah,
And so, I guess maybe this is where you're going, Tim. I mean, other than saying it's cars, vans, and pickup trucks, and it's not commercial trucks, and it's not other things like that, do we want to limit it, or does it make sense? I mean, are we going to go on site and say, well, this is not a luxury car?
Right.
Well, and I guess with the definition that is in the email, it says will include, but it's that,
Well,
the implication of the word include is typically included but not limited to.
well, but we're
And
defining
so-
what a vehicle is.
Oh, no, I'm saying, but
Yeah.
it's vehicles on type shall be, not
Yeah.
like include, because include allows.
Yeah, when we move it into the conditional use permit, we'll have to define what a vehicle is and what a watercraft is. And based on this definition, it's, I think, broader, Nicole, than what you're thinking. That may not be what they end up putting out there, but
We can't limit it to hours.
yeah, and,
Right.
yeah.
I guess the concern I've got, the concern I have is simply that if you can't, what do we limit it to?
And how do you
Because
make
if-
it enforceable?
Well, and it's a car dealership. And
Right.
do we care if they sell Nissans and Toyotas as well as Lexus and Lamborghinis?
Does
As
it
long
make a
as it's-
difference
I-
in whether or not they need fencing?
No, I mean, I go back to if
If they
it's
put
getting
up fencing,
cleaned up,
if they put up fencing, they don't need a permit from us.
and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and it's cleaned up, and it's a nice operation, I don't know why we're getting so detailed into the type of vehicle, other than that it's a car, right, a passenger car, or some form of a car, but if it's a nice car, it's a nice operation, you know, why are we nitpicking on that? I agree we need to maybe tighten it up, but we shouldn't be so limiting to say sport utility or whatever we're gonna say. I think it's, you know, to what Tim is saying, you know, just something easy, but, you know.
You know, what do we not want to see? We don't want to see commercial trucks. We
Well,
don't
I-
want to see
Well, I think
school
that-
buses.
to answer Commissioner Frank's question, the reason why we're asking these questions and being a little bit more nitpicking is this isn't the first time somebody's come in and said, hey, we're
Sure.
gonna clean this thing up and it's gonna be a bang-up, beautiful property. I mean, this is not the first time. So I mean, I really hope that it's a successful operation and, you know, it works and they do what they say they're supposed to do. But I think we need to make sure that we make it very clear in this document what we expect and it has teeth, so that if things aren't followed through as they're being discussed this evening, that we have some recourse to make sure that that property stays.
Fair enough.
Agree entirely, but I think the answer is not in focusing so much on the particular subtype of vehicle as it is to focus on the landscaping, the lighting, the cleanup provisions that are in there with dates certain,
Yeah.
you know, dumpsters being enclosed by date certain, you know, those, I think, are the teeth that we want to address
So
the
then,
majority of the historical concerns.
Yes.
under paragraph A, then, do we need to say that it's exotic and classic?
I think no, if the understanding is
We don't know what that means.
that's not definable,
Right.
you know,
Just say
If
newer
neither
pre-owned
exotic nor
vehicles
classic.
and watercraft. I mean, and then we're going to define vehicles and watercraft.
That would make a lot of sense.
and I guess,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to-
Where were you going? I'm sorry.
I think in A, just strike exotic and classic and just say newer pre-owned vehicles.
In A, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we define vehicle and we define watercraft in a way that we're comfortable with. And then if in fact 90% of them are worth more than 100,000, that's great. If that's not the case,
Right.
that's not
Can I
That's
ask
not the
one
issue.
something? Honestly, I've watched every dealership, I've been in business for 40 years, through, I own 6 different businesses, and everybody's failed out there because that area needs something special. It needs to be high-end, it needs to cater to that clientele out here, and the true meaning behind this dealership is probably 70% of it gets sold on the internet. We don't even have people that come, we ship the cars out.
so, and I guess with what you've said about the definitional terms on vehicles, it sounds like the intent is not that it would not include ATVs or other, there are certain things that would be excluded from the definition, if it's passenger cars, passenger vans, and pickup trucks as what's being sold, that it's not including larger trucks, I mean, things.
Yeah, I
along
mean,
those
we should
lines.
make it clear that the pickup trucks are not commercial, but I know, we should,
Could I suggest that we put a provision in there that they cannot sell vehicles that require a CDL license? Does that
Yeah.
put a top and on the size of vehicle, or potentially, and I'm just throwing this out there for discussion, or if the concern is to do school buses, I don't know if they require CDL, perhaps put a limitation on number of passengers as far as size of vehicles they can sell. Those are just my two thoughts on, I think, going about it a little different way that we've been discussing it to try to solve the problem.
Tom, can you,
I think on code.
can you do me a favor? If they have a question for you, can you come up to the podium and then talk if they have a question?
Just stand at the mic. You're gonna be on, you're
on
just
mic.
stand, you just stand by the mic for the rest of the night. Sorry, we don't have a chair for you.
Can I just address that issue, Casey, is, my concern is, if we start putting things, if we put things that we don't want there, if we miss something, then it's gonna read like, okay, we say what can be there, what can't be there, and then those other things fall into that.
In
Well, you
between.
didn't say you already have a list of what you can't have there, and this is not on that list. So it must be on the other list. I mean,
Yeah, no, we had that issue
one
with
of
the
those,
last.
one of those things that if you put too much in, it kind of works in reverse of what you want it to do.
Well, let me ask you this. Motorcycles aren't listed. Do you have any intent to sell motorcycles?
I don't have intent of motorcycles, but with motorsports, and which I said there can be kept inside, but I don't absolutely have to sell them there. I can sell them from another location, but
Okay.
ATVs would be the only thing I could think of that would go along with, like, not just any ATV, a special ATV,
Yeah,
but
but-
as far as the limitation on the vehicles, this might help clarify things. I believe there's a requirement for anything over 15 passenger in a vehicle, and anything over 26,000 pounds requires a CDL. So maybe you could limit it and put it at that to cover your butt? I don't know.
That's up to 15 passengers?
Yeah, because like even one of those Sprinter vans,
Because a light passenger van doesn't seem to me to
oh
be
yeah,
up to
Ford, you can buy a Ford, that's a 15-passenger Ford.
No,
Not
I think
necessarily that I'm gonna be carrying them.
Here's my response to that, is that if I have to interpret this, and a lot of times between Dan and I, we will, it says, what does it say? It says,
light passenger
light
van.
passenger vans. I would say that's a van that's, it's like the family van.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a larger, more of a grand van, but it's not the 8-passenger van. It's not the 12, 10, 12, it's not the, but if you say, oh, you can't have the 15, we could have the 10s then, the ones that.
I know my friend Signego would try to get into a lawsuit with you because he's got 14 kids.
We can always make exceptions, though. See, we're.
Yeah, I
running
mean,
into this whole
I think a light passenger van and a pickup truck and
If we-
passenger cars is a simple description. I think it means what common sense means, which is normal consumer vehicles, not commercial vehicles. And Casey, to your point, I guess I agree with Tim, if we start to exclude things, we're never going to have the right list.
I understand.
So I don't think we even need to have the weight limit, CDL license limit. I mean,
And
I
I do
think,
think that if it comes to, we see something out there that we don't like, or we get a complaint about, it comes back here for interpretation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the staff interpreting it. We can make the initial interpretation, but the plan commission and the board can decide, do we want to include that or not? Maybe that's an amendment to the conditional use at that time. Same with the ATVs. I mean, I'm at the point where I'd like to see a change out there. I'd like to see him run what he wants to run there, which is passenger cars, light passenger vans and pickup trucks. Let's get that being successful, and if he shows that he can do it in a way that's clean and it's operating well, maybe then we'll feel a little bit better about ATVs. Edward and I have just had bad feelings about this property, because it's been.
Well, we've just been burned so many times, it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I really hope that it's successful and you deliver and it turns out the way it needs to, so I just,
But
it
let's
just
not-
needs to get cleaned up, so.
Yeah.
Let's not open it up too wide, because it's hard to bring it back
Yeah,
in.
let's just,
Yeah.
baby steps, and, if it's successful and he wants to do ATVs or other things down the road, he can come back and, once he's kind of proven that needs to do what he needs
They
to
made
do.
their request, we'll give them their request.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming we get through our other sheet here then. Which we can.
Are
Are there any other conditions that
big picture issues? we want?
anybody wants to talk about?
Well, I think we need to go through the checklist, but I just wonder if there was any other big picture issues or conditions included or missing that we want to discuss before we start going through the more detailed
I
checklist.
think to your point, you know, it really comes down to the landscape plan, and the lighting plan, and, you know, making
The
sure that,
cleanup.
you know, the special event language gets added to the conditional use, and then we can, and go through the checklist.
Is there a restriction on the number of boats? If you're allowing boats, and I don't know if that is dealt with in the checklist or if that's dealt with outside of it, but.
I think the concern for me with the boats is, we heard from the petitioner that, you know, he's only gonna have a handful of boats, you know, I mean, I just don't want it to look like a storage yard or have boat storage or just, you know, make it look like it's in disarray. I mean, that's my concern with the watercraft, so.
Would you be maybe willing to compromise that the boats would have to be sold inside?
Eventually I have to put an addition on this building.
Mhm.
I've already purchased, and I don't mean to complicate things, but I've already purchased an 8,000 square foot building to come back and present for an indoor showroom so I can keep more stuff inside. It would be a glass front that'll make the building look nice, but I'm not even gonna try to tackle that. But at this point, I'm not sure I don't even have enough space to store my cars. I was thinking about maybe even getting one of those structural tents, if it's appealing I present to you guys for indoor showroom. So.
But I hear what you're saying. You're seeing a row of boats with the blue plastic?
It's not, we'll not do that. I can tell you right now, and I've been planning this for almost a year, I have a Mastercraft that's a $210,000 boat that's nicer than most people's cars. I have a pontoon boat that expands out to 15 foot, that closes up to 8'6", that looks like a outstanding boat, and I have like some jet skis that are the high-end jet skis, maybe 2 or 3 of them. That's the
So you're only, you know,
selective things I
Selective.
see that that are
so you're talking
special,
like
that I
10,
can
10,
make.
15 boats tops, you know,
Yes.
at one time.
Yes, at the most.
When you say you have them, you're trying to sell those?
It
or
will be,
Okay. They're not your personal, you're not
Yeah.
gonna store your personal items there?
no. If I stored I own about 10 boats personally.
Okay.
Well, do we want to put a limit, a number or percentage of the lot for boats? I don't know that I feel strongly about it. but-
It's sort of tough to put a limit on everything.
I know, well, that's what I'm
My
saying.
hands are gonna be tied to go out and buy stuff to be able to be successful, you know?
Well, and
And I understand your point because you're gun shy, because so many people took a kick at this can and didn't live up to their expectations.
we don't want it
but-
to look like a storage lot.
But I can tell you, I've had 4 successful businesses for almost 40 years, so I don't intend on running, my name is worth more than trying to run a lousy outfit, you know?
I think the concern, at least on my part, is making sure that the town's intentions and your intentions match.
Hope
Because,
so.
and that's how you do that with
I agree.
basically having a
That's how you make a
contract.
partnership, yeah.
Well, and if we said that, you're not looking at the quantity, but again, do you have to cover the boats if they're on the outside? I mean,
The boats usually have covers. A lot of times the jet skis won't, but the boats are all covered. And when they're covered, it's a canvas cover that matches the boat that's low
Oh, so it's
profile.
not the
a
blue-
big
it's
cover.
not the blue shrink wrap.
I'm not gonna shrink wrap boats and stuff on my property, no.
Well, that's one of our concerns,
Yeah, no,
right? Because if
I'm
you
not
see
gonna
12
offer,
boats out there all
I'm
shrink
not gonna
wrapped.
offer that service. I'm not gonna store people's boats. I'm not gonna do any of that stuff because I don't wanna deal with it.
And I know, Tim, we talked about not putting in a lot of negative conditions, but I do think, no storage of vehicles that aren't for sale would be permitted.
So is it no boat storage?
No
Or
vehicle, or vehicle storage.
Vehicles,
No,
sir?
yeah.
Now, can I ask a question? What does the M1 zoning require? I mean, what is it?
Well, if you
What is
wanted-
it? What is its language? I didn't even pull it
Basically,
up.
if you wanted to have any vehicles on a parking lot, you have to completely shield it from all sides.
So the only way that I could ever do outside storage is by putting up the proper curtain wall to be approved by you guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so I understand what,
That's right.
yeah, and theoretically, the fence that's there shielding from the south, if you were to fully enclose that, then what you put inside that would not be a concern.
yeah.
But-
Actually, I would, like along the freeway, I would prefer like a natural berm that might be 12 feet high with pine trees on it to completely shield everything. If I ever was, my intention was to store something.
Well,
I think natural looks better than a big wood fence, you know?
I think if what I'm hearing is correct, is we see boat storage business completely different than what's being proposed.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I have no intention of doing it, I promise you. And I don't care if you put that, I can't do boat storage.
Okay.
But I'm not, the more you limit it, the more we're gonna argue, and I'm not gonna run a flim-flam operation.
Tim, I just want to point out, when you're defining whatever vehicles are, there's, the Wisconsin legislature has helped a little bit in 340.01, and it has ATV, it has, in 2G, it has emergency vehicles, it has school bus. So there is, the statute does provide, I think when we are doing the drafting on what a vehicle is and what it's not, it looks like the statute will provide some direction.
But then, do we want to exclude? Because I thought we were just going to say it includes passenger cars, Which-
Well, I'm just saying it might help if it actually ties into what
the statute says.
the statute says, especially if it's something, you know, a passenger car is pretty wide in Wisconsin law,
Mhm.
and so it's.
But does it include an ATV?
Uh,
I think
I
so,
have
it
to
was
look.
separate, wasn't it?
It is, but the passenger is kind of like basically anything you can drive,
Okay.
is what it looks like, and so that's what, the word vehicle
Well,
is pretty, the word vehicle itself in the statute's pretty dry. I'm just
well,
scrolling.
but we were talking about they had to be street legal. I assume most
Mhm.
ATVs are not.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just looking here to see. Yeah, there's a lot of vehicle terms. There's a lot of vehicle terms.
Is that a state statute?
It is, it's
It's
340.01,
Oh, yeah.
and then it is the words and phrases defined, and the chapter is titled Vehicles General Provisions. And literally the entire chapter is just definitions. So it might be helpful just for dealing with some of the concerns.
It might be helpful if I read it.
Might be. It's on the internet.
So the other question that we have out here is whether or not there was a limitation on the number of boats. Is it really the number of boats, or is it the look of that?
It's the look, not the number. So as long as it's not boat storage and boat coverings are natural materials or something, I think we're fine. It's the blue shrink wrap we don't want to see 30
That
of.
would be included in here then too.
I think it does.
So
Yeah.
it's the aesthetics of that.
If you guys want to cover yourself, you could put that there's like a time limit. If a boat would come in, that would be winter wrapped, that it has to be uncovered within a week or 3 days or something, if you're really that concerned about it.
It seems like that might be exhausting to enforce.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I mean, there's a lot of concerns. I just would like people to have peace of mind, you know?
Yeah.
Well, or if it's winter wrap, it needs to be behind the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that any of the,
Yeah.
any of the boats that
laws
are,
redundant, you know?
that anything that's on display in the front lot can't be winter wrapped.
Is that probably the better way to make sure that it's included, just to have that division of anything blue wrapped in back, anything natural wrapped in the front?
I think so. Tim, you think?
I'm sorry,
Not
I'm
listening?
sidetracked here on something.
No, we're saying that if anything comes in winter wrapped or blue, blue shrink wrapped, we would want it behind the fence or inside.
Yes,
I get it.
And then anything that's on display can't be so,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
I mean, the intent of being behind that fence is really for the vehicles that are waiting for service.
True,
But
but,
I don't, once again, if you take that to an extreme, do we want, 24 boats behind the fence? Because you still have the others, you can see that from the other side of,
from Lindale, yeah.
you don't see it from 16, but, Lindale Farms or whatever, the old Lindale Farm business up there sees it, so.
I think if you're properly gonna screen that property, you'd have to build a berm up along that edge.
Yeah. If we were to do
Car
that,
passing by, they wouldn't be able to look even into the dealership. The only visibility you would have was from the freeway.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are naturally screened, you know, there is some woods on that one piece and stuff.
Should we go through the checklist that Tim put together?
Go through the checklist.
Tim, you want to lead us
Punch.
through the checklist?
Tom, why don't you have a seat, okay?
Now you can sit.
My recommendation here is that this is a deliberation of the Plan Commission and no input from the applicant or the public unless we ask questions.
Yeah.
And because we'll never get through this if we continue this conversation on things. So we can get clarifications, but if we can just get through this, that would be good.
Okay.
So if everybody's got their list then, so part of this is just, the conditions in the conditional use, some specific conditions that the staff put together, which is basically what we've been talking about. We talked about types of vehicles under letter A. I think there's some clarifications that we're gonna get rid of exotic and classic, and then we're gonna define vehicles and watercraft in the conditional use. Is it applicable? Yes. Have they provided substantial evidence? They've provided their plan of operation as to what they're looking for. The word new was added, that I added in there. So we can either keep that or get rid of it. It's up to you. In many cases, letter C, there's been no substantial evidence contrary to any of these conditions at this time. We didn't have any public input against it, so. So like for A, I think that it was met, condition was met. My next
So
specific.
then, can we just tie up then the explicit language in A? I mean, we say new or pre-owned. I don't know that it matters if new is in there, but,
It might be best, just in case they don't get into a conflict.
and I think a new vehicle is just as good or better than a pre-owned. So I'm fine with new or pre-owned. And I guess the question is then, is the definition of vehicle,
They will be, in the actual conditional use will be expanded to what's stated in the email.
right, but then do we want to look at the statutory definitions?
We will, yeah.
Okay. And the understanding is it's no off-road vehicles, which would not be street-ready. So that's, again, if we say what's included, it's private passenger auto, light vans, and pickup trucks, with whatever clarifying language comes from the statutes, definitions. Okay. That makes sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay,
Item B?
so second one was, the condition was the debris on the site has to be removed and disturbed ground shall be landscaped. Dumpster enclosure shall be repaired to provide an enclosure structure for the dumpster and any garbage. We stated cars waiting for body work or service have to be parked behind the board-on-board fence, and then that fence has to be maintained by the owner. It's a condition, it's applicable in this case. What I would say is, the substantial evidence is gonna be that if they approve, or if they sign the document, they have stated that they are going to comply with that condition. We're imposing the condition, so what evidence is needed to meet that other than they'll have to comply with the conditional use on that.
Okay. And in the conditional use, the timeline was December 1 to clean up and?
June 1st for the cleanup and December 1st for the
Mhm.
dumpster. It's just, the dumpster does not have an enclosure. It
Yeah,
doesn't have
that's the higher
doors.
priority. Okay.
Got to give them some time to clean it up. It's going to take a while,
Okay.
I'm sure.
And is the landscaping on the same timeline as the cleanup then? June?
It'd be the June 1st.
Yeah, okay.
date.
Everyone okay with
Can't
those?
do much of landscaping when I say landscape, I'm trying to think of just making it look nice with grass and
Right,
get some
right.
growth
But
out
we
there
also have the
with-
landscape plan with trees and
Yeah,
flower boxes and things like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I would actually say, to be fair, it should be July 1st.
July 1st.
We live in Wisconsin.
That is true.
My flowers froze
Yeah.
on Mother's Day last year,
Okay.
so.
Okay, fine, July
Why
1st.
July 1st?
I'm just saying, realistically, it's possible that there could be a cold May.
But the bigger issue is the cleanup,
Yeah.
getting rid of all the
Yeah.
debris. So we could have cleanup by June 1st and landscaping by July 1st.
Well, when we say landscaping, the way I read this is really just remediating the area on the east side of the property. I don't read this as they're gonna implement the landscape plan as presented. So I just wanna clarify that.
Let's ask, we're gonna ask, periodically, Tom, we're gonna ask you questions. When do you intend to plant the trees that are part of your landscaping plan?
You know, to be honest with you, I don't know when fall's gonna bring, but fall's the best time to uproot trees and plant them, because that's the best chance of making spring and fall. So they're either gonna be fall or spring.
Okay, so if we,
Can't move our trees after that.
so if we said cleanup by June 1st,
Landscaping.
the landscaping of the outlots, which you're talking about by July 1st, and implementation of their landscaping plan by December 1st, meaning giving them next fall.
Yes.
That
Yes.
works.
Agreed.
So, give those, June 1st was debris.
June 1st is debris, July 1 is the landscaping of the eastern outlots, and then all the shit
All
that's
that,
there.
there you go.
Do you really need an explanation?
Have you been out there? Have you been out there?
Anything that you're not selling as a classic or exotic car.
One man's junk is another man's.
I'm pretty sure we all agree that everything there is junk. And then December 1 to implement the landscape plan.
Okay, thank you.
And that kind of picks up item C,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so what I had received was a 2003 site plan. It's old. It didn't really show the parking the way it should be. Now we got this updated, basically it's a plat of survey that doesn't really show the parking. I did get an attachment as well that showed where they're gonna park things. I'd just like to get those cleared up and maybe put on here. We'll tell you what you gotta do when we're done. We gotta get through this, okay? It's gonna take a little bit, so let us just debate or talk about this. So I'm gonna ask for a few things on the site plan just to update it, so we have, and I'm glad that they have what they have here. It's really current. I believe, or relatively current, I think it is, 2021 September, so
This month.
that can't be.
It's dated tomorrow.
8th day of September, you said? Okay.
Tomorrow, all right?
I just wanna
Today's-
yeah, I'm so like, holy cow.
It just came in today.
Okay. He didn't think I'd send it, so, okay. Landscape plan, we'd probably want a professionally
Agreed.
prepared
Professional.
landscape plan. Obviously, they'll have a site plan already that they can add it to the site plan if they want to combine the two or not, but with plantings and the whole list of what's going to go in there.
But we can approve the landscaping plan at a separate meeting later.
We can.
And the conditional use
There's-
permit would just say, the landscaping plan approved by the planning commission some point in the
Some
future
point that,
needs to be implemented by December 1, 2022.
correct. Yep. So once again, that's a condition that has to be met. They have submitted the evidence to show that they have those documents. We just need to tweak those, I would say, or have them tweaked. All right, letter D, maximum number of vehicles displayed shall be per plan allowance and only be the west side and south of the showroom and fence. Basically, we're just saying that if you're gonna have the cars and vehicles out, they gotta be on that either west side or the south side.
But we're not otherwise imposing a limit.
Only by they'll have parking spaces for each one shown,
Okay.
and so that'll be the limit. They can probably have about 100 vehicles out there, just so everybody's clear. 100 vehicles or watercraft, shall we say, if they're gonna use one parking stall. The idea, the parking stalls don't have to be marked, but the idea would be, there's some order to what's out there. If we get random vehicles all over the place, then we can say, here's the plan, we want orderly, it'll look better.
Yep.
If you go by a car dealership, it's orderly typically, so. Unless they have a high inventory, then they got cars all over the place, you know, so if you've been at a dealership at that time.
Where we need to make any type of stipulations with regards to the wrapping on the boats? Or are we,
Well, we're not really, we can add that as a condition,
okay,
at some point in time. So owner shall submit list of chemicals to be stored on site. Once again, I took it from the last service bay that was out there. It's basically your common service vehicle chemicals, nothing, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. I know they stated that for like any of their oil, they're gonna have someone come in and dispose of the oil. Services that come in and do that. They aren't gonna, they're gonna take care of that way.
To the point we made at the beginning of the deliberation, do we want to prohibit gasoline tanks,
Sure.
above ground or below ground tanks?
Does the current operator have an on-site paint booth as well? It sounded as if that may be a possibility.
A what?
A paint booth?
It's in the body shop, I believe.
It's in the body shop.
Body shop, I think it's in the
Okay.
body, yeah. It's not out, yeah, it's in
So
the
those
body
items
shop.
are additionally covered.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Owner-operator has to follow the plan of operation. We might update the date if there's gonna be changes. We'll ask them to update their plan of operation. Once again, the evidence would be, if they sign, they're gonna agree to meet it. Lighting, as I said, I did get some lighting things. There's some information I want to additionally get. Lighting fixtures, they're gonna change the lighting fixtures on it. I wanna make sure that the poles, the lights are at 90 degrees. That's what they are out now, but the plans show a 30-degree tilt. And we ask everybody else to have 90-degree. Interesting enough, I came by a couple of car dealerships on the way here, and if you look at car dealerships, their lights are very low. These are about 30 feet high, but these are old, and that's the old way to do it. Nowadays, lights are probably at 20 feet max. So you have more of them, but they are low lighting. They keep that light low and not so high and spilling out all over the place. But I have no problem having them use the poles that are there. They're in good shape. There's no reason for us to request them to change that, in my mind. But, all right. Let's move on to the second page here. Under 1705 2 this is the basis of approval section, which is comes right from the code. The determination whether to approve or deny or conditionally approve such conditional use shall be made by the Plan Commission based on the following: violate the spirit or intent of the chapter, be contrary to public health, safety, or general welfare, be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factors, cause an adverse effect on property values and the desirability of the neighborhood. I find that many years ago, the town determined that use as a car dealership was an acceptable use at that location. There's nothing that I found from the 1977 document that indicated exactly how they got to that point, but they did make that determination. It is zoned M1. It's going to be a commercial operation there. It's not going to be residential. And so there's not much along there. There's Highway 16. To me, it's a somewhat, I won't say ideal, but it's a spot where it seems a reasonable location for that site. It's a county road to the north, state highway to the south. Not a lot of homes that are directly adjacent to this particular development. So I think it meets those criteria in our basis for approval on that. But I'm willing to get feedback on that from the Plan Commission.
Well, we had talked about adding, if it's not in the conditional use permit, some of these, no, I know there's something in here about it not being a hazard or a nuisance, but do we want to include the language in A3 as, something that's prohibited? I don't know if the language may already be in there, but I thought the language in paragraph N was perhaps not quite as specific as the language in A3.
Yeah, I think we could add that.
Yeah.
That specific language. I don't think it changes anything.
No, it doesn't, and I
That
think
does-
we've
I think
already
it just-
confirmed there's not going to be any harmful noxious odors or vibration. So I think it'd just be nice to codify A3 in the actual conditional use permit.
Any objection? No, okay. The letter B under that one was, let's see, it's got to conform to the location, height, area, yards, parking, loading, traffic, and highway access regulations. It does meet, the lot does meet all the requirements for setbacks, offsets, open space. They have 85% open space, there's only 65% required. We could talk about traffic and highway access, I think later on it's mentioned, but as far as the access, that's a county highway, so we don't have control on that. I don't think that they're gonna have an issue because the use is not changing from what it's been for many years. If there was ever a change in the use to, let's just say, a restaurant or a wedding venue or something like that,
That would be different.
then the county would get involved and probably talk about turn lanes and bypass lanes and what have you, so. All right, performance standards, those are under 1705-4F. Once again, these all come right from the code. No operation or activity shall emit any substance or combination of substances in such quantities that create an objectionable odor. In the email that came in, I think they basically said they don't anticipate any odor. I don't, in their operation, I don't anticipate it either. The only thing, you'll have car fumes, I suppose, and that's about it, which we have all over the place.
Yeah, but we just picked that up in A3 as well, so we're going to actually put in the conditional use
Yep.
that there can't be any odor.
Yeah.
So that should be satisfied now.
And that goes to number 2, it talks about, all the materials that they might have on site. Has to
Does
meet
the
all the fire prevention codes.
Does the
Yeah.
fire department have to check out the building, or do they periodically check out the building?
And do we have to modify 2C and change that to Lake Country Fire and Rescue instead of Town of Delafield
Oh.
Fire Department?
Nice catch,
That's a good catch.
Bam! Waiting on that one all night.
That's a code thing we gotta change.
All right, we don't have a fire department anymore. Should the Lake Country Fire Department check it out?
I don't know how they operate now with the, usually with new occupancies, I think they would do an inspection, but I think they do an annual or a semi-annual inspection every, for all businesses. We don't have that many, so.
Isn't it quarterly?
I don't know what it is, so,
So,
okay. So they're not, yeah. I have no issues with their hazardous materials, but we can ask the fire department to,
Yeah, I think outside of the permitting process, we should just, Tim or
Okay.
Dan, touch base with the fire department and make sure they're comfortable with everything. Okay.
all right? Number 3 is related to lighting. We talked about that.
Okay.
They're not, At the time, they weren't gonna change any on-site lighting that I was aware of, but now they are. So I think they've made positive, and they provided the evidence that they're gonna proceed with something that makes it better.
Well, and as I recall, there is a neighbor in the neighboring community that last time this came in front of this body was concerned about some of the lighting, and I know the previous owner or the current owner had worked with them about the lighting. So I think once you review that lighting plan to make sure that it doesn't
Okay.
adversely affect.
I think the
The
fact that it'll
neighbors.
be down and not tilted, plus the fact that it's going from 13,000 watts to 1,000 watts ought to
Help
Yeah.
out.
follow, yeah. But are we just gonna be comfortable letting Tim as, and staff evaluate a final lighting plan?
I mean, this is gonna have to go to the town board for approval, so hopefully he can have
Tim will
that
have- yeah.
done before it comes to the board for a vote, if the plan commission decides to push this forward this evening.
Good point, okay. Okay.
Right. Number 4 talks about runoff and things of that nature. We talked, I mentioned a little bit about, I asked them about car wash. They're gonna have a car wash inside. That'll go into their septic system, so they won't have any, they're not gonna be washing vehicles outside. They may have to pump out their septic system more, depending on how many times they wanna wash the cars. But
I think it's going to a holding tank, right?
it does go to a holding
Okay.
tank, so they'll have to pump it more often,
Okay.
potentially. It depends on how much I mean, if I had one of those nice $500,000 cars, I'd wash it every day, I think, so, but
With paint.
But I don't see, I think if we can get the lot cleaned up and where there's disturbance out there now, get with grass growing on it or some kind of vegetation, it's gonna help the environment, because right now, there's a wetland just to the southeast, and I think that our current owner has just done a poor job of, he did something to the drainage to the north side and then kinda didn't restore it, so it's been a mess out there.
Is there somewhere that we need to make sure that Waukesha County enforces or changes or signs off on the remediation? Because aren't they responsible for the wetlands, or are we still responsible?
I think the county was involved in identifying what they allowed to do there,
Okay.
but I don't know if they signed off on it or not.
Well, to your point, Ed, we're asking them to restore it under the conditional use. I guess we should say in conformance with all required permits. I mean, I don't know that the Waukesha County's got to give them a permit to restore, but.
We do say that
So
in,
they're like aware of the
Yeah.
restoration, and that they're okay with the way that it was restored, and it doesn't adversely affect
The neighboring
the
properties.
neighboring properties?
Is that already in there, Tim?
well, just in condition N, we talk about that they have to follow all laws, including County of Waukesha, State
Okay,
of Wisconsin,
okay.
United States
We're
of
good,
America.
okay.
Everybody,
That should cover everything.
all right. All right, I think the letter B from above, was that I think that whole section was talking about water quality. I think that they've addressed that. They're not gonna have sale of petroleum on the premises per the plan of operation. And then I just talked about the washing of the cars. So they've provided some evidence, some documentation of what their operation is, and I feel that they've met that requirement. In regards to noise, the only thing that, there really wasn't any information, but all we're talking about is the service station, or the service area and the body shop. In all these years, I haven't had a complaint about any noise out there of what's been going on out there. And they've apparently had a body shop and a service facility out there this whole time, because I've been told by the current owner that they still use that. There's lots of cars out there, I don't know whose they are, but
Going forward, they'll be behind a fence or gone.
Same with vibration, no information about, I mean, their information was they don't anticipate any vibration from what they're doing. This is set up once again for a lot of manufacturing situations, heavy manufacturing, and, you know, they're not gonna have any kind of manufacturing operation out there. Number 7, in regards to traffic impact study, I asked them for some information about number of vehicles that might be coming in. Basically, they said they'll have about 5 to 8 employees daily, and then they compared this site to a site on, that's on I-43, a Lynch Chrysler, Plymouth in Mukwonago. And it's apparently a very similar situation, and they have an average of about 40 people per day in their dealership. So if you take that over a 12-hour period, granted their hours are less, but even, I believe that Lynch facility is a 12-hour facility, but even that's 3 to 4 people per hour. Even in a peak time, if it's a dozen, that's not gonna create any traffic issues that we would need to require a traffic analysis on this particular site. They've indicated that they're gonna do online in a lot of cases, and so that might even reduce it even more. And I think that was it. Once again, the way the law is written, they're supposed to have substantial evidence, and I know we have a couple of attorneys here that would say, you know, I even feel like the evidence, I mean, it's hard to come up with evidence when you're putting conditions on things.
To me, the evidence is the contract itself. The
That's what I
conditional-
would say,
The conditional use permit
Yeah.
that has the specific requirements in it on the issues that we're most concerned about, you know.
This is a legal non-conforming conditional use, so there aren't any specified conditions within that specific code, or code sections, basically a one line, you know, anything, you can basically, anything that's non-conforming, anything that's legal non-conforming, you can change into a conditional use, and then work through a conditional use for that. So aren't any, you know, and other condition, if you remember when we redid the conditional use section, we had a number of conditions under each allowable conditional use. This one we don't.
Right.
And it was the same way with other uses, it was wide open.
Yeah, it
With
didn't mean
no
didn't mean
way,
anything.
no conditions where we can compare and measure what those conditions are. So a lot of these come from what I've created, as well as what's in the document itself. I mean, in the code itself.
So in terms of the document we started with tonight, Tim, we've got definitions for vehicle and watercraft. We've got a lighting plan, which we'll likely defer to staff to review and finalize. We've got we've altered the dates on mostly the landscaping side of the debris cleanup and landscaping provisions. We're gonna add a provision allowing special events, but only by permit from here. What else did we?
We have no underground gas or no.
Nope, yep, no on-site gas storage.
The boats on display, naturally covered
Yeah,
versus
Right.
winter wrap
versus winter wrapped needs to
behind
be.
the fence.
Did you mention the modification of hours of operation on Saturday?
Yep, fix the hours of operation to 7 to 3.
And then clean up paragraph P and the removal of exotic and classic in A.
Yep.
And the definition of vehicles. You know, one question I have that might address the storage issue that just kind of came to mind. Tom, are you the owner of all of the vehicles that you'll have on site? Or are there any that you'll be selling on behalf of a third party?
It will do some consignment vehicles,
Okay.
and that'll constitute if someone has a $150,000 Ferrari, they'll say that's what you want, and we'll head on to it, and they pay commission, so.
But then when they're parked there, they're technically still owned?
$150,000 Ferrari, they're being insured.
Oh, no, but
But
I'm
it's
saying.
pre-owned, it's a pre-owned vehicle,
No,
right?
I'm asking though, who's the legal owner? This is just getting to the storage issue, because the storage issue, is the legal owner going to be Cassandra's
what you're saying.
Motorsports?
Right.
Not on consignment vehicles, but there'll be
Okay.
a contract signed prior to us taking the vehicle that says we're selling it on consignment. So there won't be just vehicles laying around that won't have anything attached to it.
Okay.
That is
No, it does, I
actually
guess, I was just trying to think if we could clean up the storage issue by saying that they would own everything that was on the lot, but it sounds like they can't if they're consigning.
Owned or have it under a contract for a consignment sale.
I mean, that's possible, just to address the storage concern.
But what about their auto body shop?
Cars or cars you're
Their
doing
auto
body
body
work
shop?
on.
Yeah, then you got the
Yeah.
cars in the shop.
The auto
Customers'
body.
vehicles.
Okay.
It is
Yeah.
not being that long.
Mhm.
No, it's, I was just trying to think
Sure.
if there was a way to address that concern, but there may not be.
We're gonna add, one of the things we're gonna add is the, all the conditions of M1.
One,
Will be
other
added.
than I think D and F. I think D and F are the fencing. But double check me on that. It's been a couple hours.
Basically what you're asking, is anything that's not
And
for
then-
sale,
Yep.
behind the instead of the road.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, but
and that's in the
that's
current
yours.
conditional use. That was always the idea, that fence was
Nice.
vehicles waiting to be serviced or waiting to be picked up after service are behind the fence.
Just want to be clear.
Or left inside the garage, the shop,
Plural,
but
plural.
whatever.
Oh,
We're gonna have that many sales vehicles, because these days we're gonna be
copy and paste.
doing- we have
Hmm?
only
Usually it's
factory
two people.
certified Lamborghinis, can't we? People who bring them in and say, "From Chicago."
I love having you here.
And the
Yeah.
Lamborghinis. I don't know if it's kind of state.
Probably not.
We have all the dates for the debris and landscaping.
I think
and-
so.
Okay.
June, July, and December, I
Tons of
think.
the dates.
June for debris, July for landscaping, and December for the landscape plan.
So when are you scheduled, Tom, when are you scheduled to close?
Right now it's set for the 21st.
And then the negotiations are still ongoing for the surrounding properties?
Surrounding,
You said that you were looking at
just his personal.
adjacent
property.
property.
Personal property.
No, I thought you said you're looking at negotiation on cleaning up.
His if I know his belongings, so
Ah.
I can control the cleanup.
If
Got
he
it.
buys all the stuff, all the
If I
junk that's,
close on him and he still has his stuff there, you're gonna be telling me to get rid of it, I'm gonna be telling him to get rid of it, there's no way he's gonna get rid of it in another 10 days. So the
Okay.
easiest is if I try to buy it from him, but we'll see how that goes. I've heard Dave talking to him.
Understood.
okay. Ed, Casey, anything else we missed?
No, I think we've got it pretty much covered. I mean, do we have to make a determination based on the performance standards and the sheet that we went through with Tim that it either meets or doesn't meet for the basis of approval? I think there were a lot of yeses here, so.
Yeah, I
think-
guess I assumed that as we went through it, that if we disagreed with what Tim said, or if we wanted to comment, like we did on quite a number of them, kind of view that we've gone through
No, I
the
think
statutory
I
process.
think we went through the process and we determined that the conditions are met for these, so.
Right.
Well, we'll make a motion to approve then based on all the modifications and a lot of edits. I'm not going to repeat all of them because I won't remember any of them, but
And then it's a recommendation, I think, to the town.
recommendation to the town board.
I'll second.
And this is just for the conditional use, we'll take the sign separately.
I thought the sign was part of this, did you have me submit this?
We did have the
It's a
sign.
separate motion.
It's a separate motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just.
We're very particular about signs, in case you didn't hear the first agenda item.
No, I've never had the intention that I was getting a new sign.
But good catch, Ed.
I have a new cover on it, so.
Okay.
Before you make, can we have discussion?
I was gonna say, any further
Okay.
discussion?
Okay. I just want to clarify, so So the conditional use we'll get this edited and move forward to the board next week, you want? Or do you want to see it again? Or, well, that's one question. The other question is, there's things like the site plan, lighting plan. Would it be, are we going to approve this and then we won't issue this until those plans come in? Because that's one way to do it, is to say it's approved, but it could be approved through the plan commission and the board. But then a condition would be, we are not going to issue and record this, and they can't do anything out there until they get those items done.
Right. I think we.
Or you can put them out. You could say, okay, the site plan and the other plan.
I think the site plan and the lighting plan, we want to be part of this initial phase. I thought the landscaping plan, we might be a little more comfortable waiting for the formal landscaping plan.
So they would have to get the site and the site and the lighting done by next Tuesday, but I mean.
Or
We're already-
this permit is make this, the execution of the permit conditioned
Condition
upon final approval
submittal
of
of
a site
those-
of those two? Or do we want to make it all three then? How quickly can you get a true landscaping plan?
I'm not 100% sure. Like, if you called us to get concrete, we can come give you an estimate till spring. And I can't really wait any longer than sitting on this $5 million.
Yeah, no, and we kind of view the landscaping plan as a good idea. I don't know, I'd be willing to,
Well, I mean, I think, we got the,
Landscaping right now acceptable with the staff approving the landscape plan? I mean, can the staff approve that, or does the planning commission have to approve that?
Well, here, what could happen is the plan commission could approve the site, the landscaping, and the lighting plan at a later time. It's just gotta be written in the document as such, if we're gonna move this document along. The problem we have is, it's already, it's
Tuesday.
Tuesday, Dan gets the agenda out Thursday, so
yeah.
the board isn't gonna get anything new, and they're all,
Can I ask you one
thanks for
question?
sticking around. Steve left, and at least we'll have a few people that know what's going on for that meeting.
Can I ask you a question? Is the lighting plan far enough along that you can approve that?
No.
What do you need based on?
Well, I'm not gonna go into it right now, but
But-
I looked at it for about 5 minutes, so it's like,
So,
You can look at it that
Well, I don't want to
That's why I'm
necessarily
just asking you the question.
I don't want
rush
it,
it either.
I don't
but-
want it to come to the town board if it's not done.
Right.
But I also don't think we need to have every one of the site plan, landscaping, lighting plans done either. I think we can, my suggestion would be revise the conditional use permit based on tonight's meeting, assuming we vote on it in favor and recommend it. Maybe not put it on next Tuesday's agenda, but the following bi-monthly meeting, which would be the
28th.
end of this month.
But I'm supposed to close on the 21st, and I don't know if he's gonna give me an extension. The only thing I got left, not financial or anything, is approval from Zoom.
Okay, okay.
So that's my catch-22, not yours.
We can put it on the town board for the following meeting, and if they don't feel comfortable, let the board discuss what they feel comfortable as far as the site plan, plan of operation.
Well, and again, I'd be more comfortable adopting the conditional use permit with those site plan, lighting plan and landscaping plan to be reviewed in the following 30 days, because that, I think everybody can come to an agreement on. But to get him the actual permit before the 28th, will we have the conditional use permit redlined by Thursday of this week to go out in the board packet?
Well, he's looking for approval, a final approval from the town board, which I can't guarantee that it'll. Because I'm guessing you have a contingent offer that, on the approval of the conditional use, you'll sign. And,
Zoning approval, so it doesn't necessarily mean that the landscaping and the lighting have to be approved, but you have to be able to give me occupancy.
The conditional use permit has to be ready to be issued.
and I can't guarantee that on the 14th. There's still a lot of pieces. He's still waiting on a site plan, a final one, a light plan. I think I'd rather have the town board decide at the meeting if they feel comfortable. You can make the motion for 30 days from, but the town board can always amend that.
Right, and again, I'm trying to separate the conditional use permit, the document we started with tonight, from the three plans that we don't have finalized yet. Because the site plan, we've seen this, and I don't know how much more we're gonna need to see. The landscaping plan, it was hand-drawn, but it's way better than what we got now. And the lighting plan Tim got, and Tim will work on it. And my point is, if we add a provision that the conditional use permit won't be effective until the town board approves the site plan, landscaping plan, and lighting plan in the next, fill in the blank, I don't care, 30, 60, 90 days. If that gives him enough comfort to close on the transaction, because he's got the occupancy, and all he's got to do is satisfy us on lighting and landscaping, given that we've already talked about that fairly much. The real question is, can the document be done by the time the board packet
The
goes out?
document, the actual document can be ready with all the edits, yes.
Okay,
by-
that, okay.
At least by
by-
Monday so that we can have it for the board to review it. I don't know if it'll be ready by Thursday.
It may not be in the
It could be ready
first
by-
board packet, but
by
Unless
Thursday.
he's taking off Friday.
I'm not taking
Thursday.
off Friday.
Thursday afternoon?
Yeah.
okay. So
We'll get the document
we
ready.
think the document could be ready for the board, the town board's review on next Tuesday.
See, in lieu, my problem is, I have to have you guys sign off for the state to give me my license.
We're voting on it tonight.
No, I mean, they won't, until you guys sign it, regardless.
I think that was more my issue.
Oh.
Cassandra said, you know, I got the form, it's sitting there, but I don't,
I
it
don't
says,
understand how it
the
works.
form says that the town's approved, you know, approved this use on this land, and I can't do that until the board does it. And then I'll sign it,
I
and
know you signed one.
But the
and I
board
don't know.
could do that as soon as next Tuesday.
Correct.
It-
Theoretically, but
it's-
that's the board's
It's the
decision.
board's decision. So our objective, if we're comfortable to move this to the board with the conditions, the amendments we just discussed, basically the motion pending, and I do think we would want to acknowledge the site plan, landscaping plan, and lighting plan to be subsequently reviewed and approved, and as a condition of the conditional use permit becoming effective.
Yes.
That then gives the parties and staff and the planning commission and the board more than 7 days to look at some plans that haven't even been drafted yet.
Right,
Or just
exactly.
received tonight. And I think I'm comfortable moving forward with the permit and subsequently review those 3 plans. And if the board is too, then I think we've got a solution, so.
the pressure is gonna be on the applicant. If we
Right.
don't like something on those plans, then we're gonna ask for more.
Right, right.
And
That's what we get to do.
and that's our prerogative.
And that's
so, I
our
mean,
prerogative, but,
Right.
but we've seen, you know, we've got the site plan, I mean, I don't know, we haven't reviewed it necessarily, but
We have the documents, it's just they're not to 100%.
they're not 100%, but,
They're never 100% the first time they come
But-
in, so I mean.
but there's nothing there that's so glaringly bad. It's not like we're gonna say, yeah, the 20 trees you look is great, but we'd like to have
The other
400.
thing I would say is, we require, I mean, seriously, for the landscape plan, we require other people to have professional landscape.
Oh,
We did it for
The church and,
Flogger, the.
yeah, we're gonna have that, yeah.
I mean, and we required it more upfront than this one, but we're willing to work with, you know, I'm willing to work to get this thing
It-
through, you know,
It sounds
so that
like
the deal can be
the
made.
petitioners have been very responsive to your requests.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think the plan commission has done their due diligence. It's not necessarily a substantial change in the use of the current property. So I mean, it's not like, you know, what's gonna be happening there is, I mean, I'm hopeful that it's gonna be better than what's currently there. So I mean, I think
That's a win.
it's a win-win for the town and everybody involved. So, you know, I believe there's a motion and a second on the table. So.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I mean, again, that's, so what we're voting is to approve the conditional use permit recommended to the board with the edits we discussed tonight, with the site plan, landscaping plan, and lighting plan to be addressed in a subsequent meeting or with staff. And then the draft will go to the town board before Tuesday's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Next
You should,
next
when you get a
Tuesday-
draft
Ooh.
from Dan or
You know,
Tim.
let me talk to the landscaper also. I have the trees.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about the landscaping plan. You're gonna get approved, the conditional use permit that get approved on Tuesday is the contract you have to sign.
Right.
So when you get the revised draft from Dan or Tim later this week, you should make sure before next Tuesday's planning commission meeting that it is what you want verbatim. Because at the board meeting, at the town board meeting, you could say, can we change paragraph C to read X and such? And they can take that into consideration. But what they adopt, you then have to sign.
I'll have someone liberally redline.
Lightly redline it, I believe is the term. Just to be clear on what liberally meant.
Right.
Lightly, no redlining is fine.
I would agree.
Yeah, so anyways, okay. Item 6, discussion, none.
Maybe I should, so.
Next meeting, October 5th. Oh,
Of the sign.
what? Oh, shoot, nope. Item 5C, we now have to approve the sign. Thank you.
No, it's just a.
Is there anything with the sign, Ed? It looked
Well,
good to me.
the sign looked good, I just didn't, there was no comments from Tim regarding, you know, whether it met the code or if he had any concerns, and I just,
It's the same sign that we've had up there.
Same size.
Same everything.
Same everything, town of Delafield against
Don't
my
have-
wishes and
They-
saying.
motion to approve the sign for Cassandra's Motorsports.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, your sign is approved too. Item 6, discussion none. Item 7, next meeting, October 5th. Item
Motion
8,
to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Well done.
Thank you all for the patience. Uh-oh.
I'm just gonna leave this with you
What's that?
to make
Oh.
it easier for
Oh,
you.
that's the original, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
I won't lose it.